Tu as battu le code de séance les fêtes?
Yes, I will upload it. Just
Ah, خاطر ما لقيتش.
I have the connection cut in the weekend, so okay. So what we will see today is very important. We'll start creating materials, and we will create something called a master material. So, and it will have 4 layers of complexity. So a master material is one single material that could be assigned to all the objects in our level through material instances, and this way we are optimizing our resources. So the system will not need to calculate every material individually, so it will only calculate the master material and instantiate the calculation to the instances. And also this material will be fully parametric, so we will create every type of material out of this one single master material. So we'll create glass, plaster, fabric, any type of material out of this one. So to start, I will create a new folder here and I will name it materials. And to create a material inside Unreal, you need to right click here or go to add here, or so it's here, right click or go to add. Here you cannot add a material, so only here in the content browser or here. So right click and you go to material, and I will create a new material. I will name it M master. So this is our master material, and let's create a plane in our project. So just to test our material, okay? Set it 90 degrees. And we have 2 types of materials in Unreal. So we have master materials and we have material instances. So master materials looks like or acts like the father, and instances are the childs, okay? The parent and childs. So instead of creating a new material each time like this, which will force the engine to calculate each material individually, we will create one master material like this, and later we'll create a material instance out of this material. So, and the system will only calculate this one and it will not calculate these. And also there is another reason. So updating or making edits in this material will take some time when we hit apply, but with the material instances we have the changes instantly. And the third reason is that we don't want to work in a destructive way, because we have only one master material. So we want the edits or the changes for different materials to happen on the instances, and we want to keep this as a parametric material, so a source material that is untouched, okay? So these are the reasons for creating a master material. So 1, performance; 2, is non-destructive workflow; and 3, which is having different possibilities and different material types in one single level. So I will duplicate this plane maybe 2 times. We'll create later different materials, maybe 4 times. Let's create 4. Okay. And later we will create 4 material instances and assign each material instance to one of these planes. Okay, so let's go to Polyheaven and grab some textures to work with. So let's say, for example, we want this cobblestone material. So we will pick, we'll go to options we will pick color, diffuse, which is diffuse here. We don't need displacement for now. Normal, roughness, and so we can bring the occlusion, roughness, and metallic if we want to go with the ORD or ORM workflow like we did in Substance. So I will bring them all in PNG, and we don't need the roughness separate because it will be included in this one map. So we have and also the AO, we don't need it because it's included here. So we have 3 maps to work with. We have the normal, the diffuse, and the occlusion, roughness, metallic. So these 3 maps only what we need. And we will download this at 2K. We'll extract.
ماشي في الانريل do we always معناتها need normal maps ولا الانريل can handle details without
For games we always need normal maps.
okay
If you are working or with any type of material, you need to have some normal maps information.
okay
Unreal can't generate normals directly, okay? So they need to be baked in some maps.
okay
Okay, so inside our materials folder, I will create a new folder and name it textures. And here I will import my textures. These are the cobblestone textures that I had downloaded. And here we have 3 maps. I will drag and drop them here. So we have the color. And as I said in the previous sessions, for the color, we need sRGB to be checked. For anything black and white like these maps, we need sRGB unchecked. Otherwise, we will get a completely wrong result and completely wrong reflections and roughness and metallic, okay? So anything black and white, you need sRGB to be unchecked. And this is the same thing we did in Substance, if you remember. We export the roughness, the occlusion, the roughness, and the metallic in separate channels. So that's the same here, and this is the PBR workflow, physically based rendering workflow. So now we will go to our master material. If you can close the mic, thank you. We will go now to our master material, and we will tab this in here like in Google Chrome or any other browser. So we will tab it here, and this is the UI when you go to the material editor. So we will start explaining what all of these panels are doing before we start creating our material. So the first thing that you will do when you create your material is to double click, and it will take you to the material editor. So this is think about this like a factory to create materials, okay? So this is where we can make our materials. So unlike other 3D apps, they have materials pre-made. Here you create the material as you want. So you add the attributes and you add the nodes and you create the attributes for your material. It's not pre-made, you made it. Okay, so if you click, so this is the graph, material graph view. This is where we can connect things and create nodes and control our material. So you can navigate, right click to pan, so mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. It's a 2D view. You don't have the ability to do 3D rotation here, but you can zoom out, zoom in. You can pan with the right mouse click. Okay, here you have your material where you can input some information, texture maps, nodes. We will see all of that. and you have some attributes, but if you look closer, you can see that some of them are accessible and some of them are grayed out. Okay, they are inaccessible. You can't input anything here because these are depending on what you choose in this global details. So if you click on the material itself, you will see this. If you click on a node, for example, let's say constant 3 vector, the view here will change. So to access the global material settings, you need to click anywhere in this empty space, okay? Or you need to click on the material itself. So,
Bonjour.
salam. So here, material domain and blend mode, shading model. So we will explain all of these. So in nature, let's draw something. Go to paint, for example. So in nature, any material that we have, let's say, for example, this. There is a table. I don't have good drawing skills, so just something that. And for example, for the wood material here, it has some physical attributes. So in nature, in our lives, the wood is composed from different layers. Okay. So these the layers are the same that we will recreate in 3D. So the first layer or attribute, it has the more accurate physical term is attributes, okay? But in 3D, these attributes could be included as layers. So the first attribute, it has color. Okay? So the first thing, it has color, this wood. Also, it has bump or normal. And it has some roughness, which is how the material, the surface reacts to light and reflect things. So if you look at, for example, at clean wood in kitchen, when you see the kitchen lamp, you will see that it's drawing some kind of highlight on the table.
Reflection.
Yes, or on the floor. So this is how the material itself is reacting to light. It's not the light itself, it's the attributes in the material. So if the material is more rough or more or less rough. We have also, so we have color, normal, roughness, and material in general, not only wood, not wood specifically, but any material could have metallic, and also it could have subsurface. It could have many other attributes depending on the material. So for some materials like glass, for example, it couldn't have color, for example, or it could have for colored glass. So it depends. So these attributes are not fixed always. So some of them could be available, some of them couldn't. Is that clear? Depending on the material. So some materials don't have color, but have normal, have reflection, and have also refraction. So roughness and refraction. Refraction is the transparency of the object. So wood doesn't have refraction, but glass has. Okay, so we add and we connect these attributes based on the attribute that we want. But you will see here, we will create an advanced 4 layers of complexity master material that will serve all the purposes we are talking about. So you can create a glass material out of from this one, or you can create wood, you can create any type of material out of one single master material, okay? And that's the main purpose of this whole lesson here. And this is one of the most important lessons in our entire training, because if you understand how materials work, you will understand how to take your environments or your assets to the next level, okay? So what makes the difference between a good render or a good scene and a bad scene is of course lights and also materials. So if you have the wrong setup on your material, even if your meshes are good, you will get a bad result. So your materials needs to look very, very realistic and also very, very well detailed. Okay, and we will see all of that in our session today, and maybe in the next session we will expand our knowledge to other advanced nodes in the materials. Okay, so here is the material attributes. Replicate that. As you can see here, we have base color, metallic, specular, roughness, anisotropy, emissive. If you have some emissive materials, if you remember in substance, we explained what is emissive. Opacity, but you see here opacity is grayed out and opacity mask are both grayed out. Who can tell me why?
في البليندنج معظم اوباك
Yes, exactly. So here and now we will explain this. So you will choose your material domain. In Unreal, we have different types of materials, and the engine will ask you, do you want to create a surface? A surface is like exactly the term, it's a surface. If you are creating a material for your object or your meshes, you need to pick a surface. Deferred decal. Decals are materials, specific materials that have details and could be projected on objects to create, to add more details without having to model these. I will show you an example. So if we go to our viewport here, and let's duplicate this, and I will add a material on this and add a decal on top of it. So let's go to add Quixel content. Hope it works now, because in the last session they have an error on their servers. I wasn't able to sign in. Okay, so I will explain this in detail, so we will see the Quixel bridge, but now I will download this material. In medium quality, so in 2K. We will have a dedicated session to Quixel materials, but before that we need to know how to create materials from scratch, okay? Because these are libraries that can help you create your materials, but without the knowledge of this session, you cannot use these as in the best way they could be. So I will drop this on in here, and you can see this material has all the attributes we need to, so it has normal, it has the ORD map, and it has everything. But imagine that I have a wall and they are seamless, so they are they can, as you can see, they can snap perfectly together. I will just place them by hand, and imagine that I have a wall like this. The first thing that you can see is what?
تايلينج كبير برشا.
تمام.
It's repetitive. The same pattern is here, here,
موجودة.
and here, and here. So to remove this pattern, I need to assign different or offset the textures, and this will risk losing the seamless in here. So if I move this texture or move the UVs for this object to be on the other side, we risk to get issues and to get visible seams. So a good way to eliminate this, or to reduce it at least, is to use decals. So I will go to add Quixel content. Now I will show you how to add pre-made decals, but in upcoming sessions we will create our own decal from scratch. Okay, so I will add this decal material to my library, and you can see it's a material, but it's not like this one. It will not be assigned to the mesh, but it will overlay on the mesh. You can see here it's now overlaying on the mesh, and you have this small blue arrow that will indicate the direction. So if you want it to be projected on this wall, you need to rotate it 90 degrees. And this way we are projecting our decal on the wall. Okay. And now we can rotate it 90 degrees. And here we have attributes. We will see all of that. But now you can see I'm adding details and breaking the repetition of our wall using decal. Okay. And now I can, for example, create or duplicate this, and I have, for example, a different wall. So this detail is breaking some of the repetition here. If you want to do it further, you can download more decals and add them on top of the repetitive patterns. So let's, for example, search for a crack or any other detail. So you go to decals here, and we have concrete, for example. So let's have many of them. We will pick something that is a little bit big, that could cover some areas. So let's take this one, for example, and download it. So I will add it. And now if I drag and drop the material on these areas, I can start creating details. You see? And I'm hiding these patterns with details like that. I can duplicate this and, for example, place it in the middle, rotate it, make it bigger. So you can make it bigger from here. Don't use the gizmo here because it will cause problems. So decals should be scaled from the decal size menu. You see, now we are getting more details and we are breaking the repetition in our texture. If you will model this manually and you will add all of these details, you need to add a lot of vertices, okay, to make these details and extrude them in and texture them. You can do the same in Substance Painter, but you will need to export a lot of textures for the same wall and to make a lot of variations. So this is an easy and quick way to add details, and you can see these details have normals, have everything you want in a texture. And especially from distance, they will look very, very detailed and very deep. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
So I will rotate the light. You can also see that the texture is reacting to the light source. So for example, if I rotate it like this, you can see, because the normal map, the more it's facing the light, the more it will show details. So now we are seeing more of the details in our wall. And of course, you can mix a lot of them together to get completely unrepetitive wall. So these are decals. If you open one of these materials and look in the master material of the decal, you will see the type material domain here is not surface, it's deferred decal. Okay? So if you want to make your own decals in your levels, you need to create a separate master material for decals, because this could not work for decals. It's a surface. So you need to create a separate master material for decals. But you can, like the normal materials, you can create a master material for your decals and create infinite variations from one master decal material. So here at the end, you will have two master materials and many instances as you want, but the system will only calculate these two master materials. Is that clear? And if you go to the decal material in the Quixel, you can see that it has a lot of attributes here. This is the material instance, and all of these attributes are coming from this master material. So we will create something like this today that will allow us to expand the parameters in form of sliders and values to our material instances. Okay, so in this way I can duplicate this material instance, I can create infinite material instances from this master material. So that's the workflow we will do today. Okay, so let's remove these. Let's remove two. And let's back to our master material. So I will close this. And here, as I said, so material domain, we have surface, deferred decal, light function. In the lighting session, we will explain what is light function, because we can insert some types of materials into lights to do some specific projections. For example, if we want to do something like caustics. Okay. And we will do this example. So if you have a swimming pool or water that have this pattern here, these are called caustics. This phenomenon, this physical phenomenon, is called caustics. So this is when the sunlight interacts with the pool water and the pool materials, and it creates this animated textures. Okay, you will see that when you go to the swimming pool, or you can see this also in a very clean water in the sea. So you will see this phenomenon happening because when the sunlight traverse the water and project the lights on the objects on the floor of the sea, you will see this happening. So it will traverse the water in different depth. So the less depth of the water will cause darker areas, and the less the deep water will create brighter areas, and the more and deep water parts will cause black areas. Okay, so this is how it works in nature. You can also see videos. So this is for Blender, but we will do the same in Unreal, as you can see here. So these are the caustics, for example. So they are not only underwater, so you can create caustics to simulate, for example, marble materials, because marbles have some patterns like caustics. But usually we do that at material level, not at light level, okay? But for specific caustics, water, etc., we do that at light level. Also, if you are working on a game and you have a flickering light, So let's imagine that we have a horror game and we have our light flickering in, for example, a dark corridor. Or so let's see an example. For example, let's say we have this light and it's turned on and out, like the bulb is damaged in a horror movie or a horror game. And when this is turned out, between the turning out and in, something happen or a monster is coming. So you can control this via materials, and you can assign a flickering material, so you can make some nodes, and we will see that in the lighting session. Make some nodes at the material level to control the light behavior. Okay, so the material editor is not only for creating materials, but also could be used to create light functions. Post process volume, if you have a volumetric effect. So let's say you have a simulation, an explosion that has volumetric files like VDB files. So you created this in Houdini or in let's say in Embergen here, for example. So I will show you an example. Happening twice. This is a great tool to create explosions and any sort of volumetrics, fires, everything. And this is used in new games that you play to create very realistic effects. Okay, so it's used by studios. You can create very advanced effects, so it has presets also, as you can see, like this. So there is a lot of examples. So let's take this for example. So this tornado effect, and if you import this, you cannot import it as a mesh. This is not a mesh information. This is a simulation, okay? So the file type is not, for example, the ones we know, FBX or OBJ. It's not a mesh, it's a volume. So they have a specific format called VDB format. And this VDB format could be imported into any other 3D tool like Unreal, Blender, Maya to render it and to integrate it in your scene. But also, it doesn't work with the normal surface material. It needs a volume material, okay? Because it's a volumetric effect. So if you turn the volume on, you will have access only to these 4 options, okay? It supports only these 4 options. It doesn't have normal, doesn't have reflection or refractions. It's a volume, like smoke, like fire. So it doesn't have all of these details. Post process. So the post process has only emissive color, and we'll take a look at this later, because this is very useful when you will add post process effects to your level. So let's say you want to transform your level into a cartoon style or an outline. You can create a material that is applied globally as a post process to your level. So let's say example. We'll see if we can create one. In our lesson, but the post process will be applied on top of everything in your level to shape another look for your game. Okay, so for example, I created a realistic game and I want to transform the visuals into something like a watercolor painting. Okay, so I can use this and apply it to a post process volume, and this will be applied to all of my objects and it will transform the look of my level. Also, if I want to transform my scene into a sketchy scene and keep the gameplay and everything, I can apply this material in the post-process volume and my game will have a completely different look. Okay? So this will be applied on top of all of your scene. It's a global post-process, or you can choose to apply it in some specific areas of your level, because you will have a post-process volume that you can place it anywhere. So let's do an example here. I will add a post-process and I will explain this in the post-process section. But this cube here, for example, if you can see it, it's just a box. It's not doing anything, but I can make it doing many things. Okay? When I enter inside it, now nothing is happening when I enter inside it. So imagine that there is a player now and is entering this area, for example. So let's do play. And this is my player, as you can see here. And let's imagine if I enter this area, my scene will become red, like a danger zone, and I'm entering a fighting area, okay? So let's simulate that. I will select my post process in here, and I will go to color grading, for example, and I will, first thing, I will decrease the temperature. So now when I enter it, it will go blue. I will go the other direction and do it like something orangey, okay? And now I can tint it more, for example, to the red, like that. Okay? So now when I enter inside it, it will become red. Let's test this in the gameplay. So I'm already inside it. I will go far, and now when I go inside again, it will become red. Okay? So that's how when you play games, for example, in some battle scenes, the scene become red like this, and the colors are different because the character is entering a battle area or arena. Okay, so this is one of the functions of unlimited functions. A lot of things you can do to this. You can make this infinite. So you can tell it to be applied to all the level. Now when I hit infinite, it doesn't care about the bounds here or about the limits. It's applied to the entire level. Okay. I can also control the exposure. I can tell it to modify the exposure. Here we'll see all of that. So in dedicated lesson, but I can tell it to make the scene brighter when I enter. Now I have the scene brighter, okay? And when I go back, it becomes lighter. Now it's brighter. Now it's normal, and like that. So you can make many effects using this. Also, what you can do is you can add a post-process material effect. So let's add one from Fab. Hope we have one for free. And yes, I have one here. So I will add this post-process shader, and it will show you in the library what this shader is doing to your level. It will transform your level into this view, okay? So I will add it to my project. But we will see all of that in dedicated lesson. I will just show you what is a post-process material and what the types of materials, so you have a global look about what everything is doing. So here in the post-process volume, I can go to post-process material. So I can search for material, and here I can add a material. So we will see all of that later. And then we will go to materials. And here we have these effects. So I will make my post-process volume infinite, so it will be applied to all the levels so you can see it. And I will remove the color adjustments that I did previously. I will leave it as default. And now I will add the material to the post-process material. So let's add, for example, this one. And you can see immediately that our level is changed. So the sky become darker and everything. So let's change this, for example. Now it's red. Now it's watercolor, you can see. So it's transforming the entire scene, and you can create amazing effects. And you can see that the textures are animated and the edges are like molded or like melting effect. You can see. And now if I play also, you can see that everything has this effect. So you can create cool games and cool effects using this. So on top of your modeling, if you are doing some stylized things and you want to add these on top, this will be a very nice way to add them. So you can see that it's transforming the objects into a very cool style. So here we have a lot of styles. So we have this also. We have this one, a lot of them. So you can see here the pattern. You can create very cool stylized effects for your environments. So I think you saw many games with these effects like this on the meshes, on the entire level. And these could be also done in Unreal at the post-process effects. So this also, and this last one, which is fire. So you can see that we have lava and fire effects on our level. So let's say this is a volcano, a level, or anything so that has lava. And this is a very fast and cool way to add these effects without affecting performance, okay? Because this post-process material is very light and it doesn't require a lot of processing power, okay? So this is what a post-process material can do. User interface, if you are creating widget for your games, okay? Main menus, you play games, so main menus, any graphical UI in your game, menus for settings, so pop-ups in games that will show you information about a character or about anything. So any user interface material could be created through this user interface, and you have only final color and screen position. It doesn't support any other thing. Only it can support opacity also, but beside that, so it could be masked. You can input a mask, but beside that, you cannot do anything else. So let's go back to the 99% of cases that you will use when material domain should be set to surface. So this is 99% of cases. So using anything other than surface is rare and case dependent, okay? So for example, if you want, as I said, to add some specific functions, some specific post-process materials, but usually you can ignore all of these and make a one surface material, and you can create a complete level out of this. Is that clear?
Wait.
But I have a question.
Yes.
And the effect that you did earlier, can we limit it to the box only? So like when you go inside the box, you see like the rain effect and stuff.
Yes, I said you need to. By default, it's limited to the box, but I checked infinite, extend, and bound.
Oh,
So it will be applied to the all level, infinite,
okay.
unbound. Okay, so the second thing, so now we picked our material. We told the Unreal that we want to create a surface. And the second thing, it will ask you what type of surface you want to create. Do you want to create an opaque surface that don't have opacity? Or you want to create a masked material, or a translucent, or additive, or modulate, alpha composite, alpha holdout. So these are the blend modes. You can mute your... So these are the blending modes. Usually we will use opaque. If we have, for example, glass, personally I prefer creating a separate master material for the glass, okay, for all glass materials. But you can make this masked and make the opacity mask accessible in the master material itself, okay, and that's what we will do today. So we will minimize our number of materials to save cost. But for cinematics, for anything else than games, I may make separate glass materials for glass, okay? But for this one, we will make it a part of our big master material, so we can transform it to glass whenever we want, or even to colored glass. So this will serve, as I said, as a multi-purpose material. So the next thing is shading model. So these shading models are, so now it's asking you what material, what blending mode, and now how the material reacts to light. Okay, how the material reacts to the light, which is the shading model. Unlit, it will not react to light. Okay, you can use this when you will create a flat color game. Okay, that doesn't have any attributes. So like, look at this like a flat color material, doesn't have bump, doesn't have any reflections or refractions, any physical attributes, it's just a color. Okay, so that's when you choose unlit. Default lit, which is most of the time you will choose this. Subsurface, if you have a character skin and you want to assign subsurface. We already explained this in Substance, yes? What is subsurface? So when we say that the light will traverse our skin, or anything that is like wax, like milk, anything that has different layers of materials inside it, and the light will traverse them and create the phenomenon. So if you have a human skin, you need to work with subsurface to get very realistic results. You don't need them, you don't need this one, but if you want to have your character realistic, you need to use subsurface, okay? But this will come at a performance cost, because this is very intensive on performance, okay? It should be used carefully on some important, or on your main character, or your main character and the other main characters in the game. But for crowds and things in the background, so you can use the default lit, okay? So that's very intensive. Pre-generated skin, pre-integrated skin. So that's like a cheap version of subsurface here. Clear coat, if you are creating a clear coat material like the car materials. So when you have different layers of shininess. So let me explain what is clear coat. It's the bright halo around objects. So if you can see here, so this is a normal material, and this is the clear coat. The brightness around the edges. This is more prominent here, but this is the default shape, and you can make it more aggressive like this. Okay. So this is, you can find it in car materials. So like the car main material, if you can see here, the edges of the car are shiny like that, and this is what is clear coat. Is that clear?
Yes.
It's the
Yeah.
outer of the material, how it reacts to light. By the way, most people are using Unreal doesn't differentiate between these, so they will always use default lit. But for maximum realistic results, these in some cases are the best choices. Subsurface profile. So this is a profile that you can create in Unreal. Unlike this subsurface that requires a subsurface texture that you import from Substance or from any other texturing tool, this is subsurface profile. You can create a subsurface profile for your material directly inside Unreal and import your texture inside the profile itself, okay? Inside of connecting it directly in the subsurface here. Two-sided foliage. If you are creating two-sided foliage, let's say, for example, leaves. When you create textures for leaves, this is a very good way to create two-sided foliage, especially for RGB scenes when you don't care about performance, but you want the most realistic look. You can pick two-sided foliage, and I will explain it. So like subsurface, two-sided foliage is when the light traverse the foliage from both directions, and you will see this phenomenon happening. I think this is the closest one. Not this one, but so let's take this image. You can see. So let's imagine that our sun is here, okay? And it's casting light. So the light will traverse the leaf, and when it goes from the other side, we will have two shades in the leaf. One, which is bright, this face, okay, because it's facing the light direction directly, and the light will lose some of its brightness when it's traversing the leaf and going from the other side. The other one will be darker. You can see here, it's from the bottom, it's darker than this one, okay, especially in these areas, because the light is losing some of its intensity when traversing the thick mesh of the leaf, okay? This is what happened in nature, and this is, if you want to replicate this exactly in Unreal, you need to pick two-sided foliage. You can see when I switch between these, some options become unavailable and some become available. So this is context depending, okay? If you are going for specific effects, you can choose this. If you are creating a hair material or any groom material, you can pick hair here. Cloth, eye, single layer water if you are working with water. So these are self-explanatory. Thin translucent. So let's say you have a very thin translucent object, and translucency is like subsurface and two-sided foliage, but for glass. When the light traverses glass, so the glass has some translucency, okay? But it's less aggressive than subsurface and two-sided because the glass is more transparent, and the light will not lose a lot of its intensity, but it will do something inside the glass. So let's show an example. So this frost glass example is very good. Yes, this is an example. So if you can see here, even in normal glass without frosted, but this is an aggressive example that will explain what is translucency. So if you place an object behind a frosted glass, you will see that the object, it's not fully visible. It's like a ghosting effect, you see? Because the light, depending on the parameter and in the translucency of the mesh, it will lose a lot of its power, and as a result, it will show the objects in this ghosting effect, okay? If this is a clear glass that has a very less translucency value, we will see it more clear, like a mirror, like this, or very close to this. But here, it's like we are applying a fog filter to our glass, which is the frosted glass. The same phenomenon happen when, for example, you wake up the morning and you in a very cold morning, and you will find that your window has this frosted effect, okay? So that's the same. So you need to clean it with your hands to see the clear effect. So this is translucency. So the translucency is the transparency of the glass material. But it's different from the opacity and opacity mask here, because translucency is directly reacting to light, unlike this, which is a parameter in the material itself, so opaque or not. But translucent, how much the light could traverse it, okay? So that's the meaning of translucency. Is that clear?
Yes.
Oui.
Okay, so we have two-sided. So if you want your material to be two-sided or one-sided, so for example, if you look in the materials in Unreal, so let's duplicate this material. And I will just duplicate it for the purpose of demonstrating, because we don't want to distract it. And let's save it. So this is a one-sided material. If I apply it here now and look from the other side, I'm seeing nothing, okay? Is that okay?
Yes.
So I'm seeing nothing from the other direction. But if I apply the material that has two-sided checked here to this plane and look from this, I'm seeing the two sides, okay? So this is what two-sided material is doing. For some scenarios, you need two-sided to be applied. For some others, you don't need it. So if I have a room closed like this, I don't need to see the other side of the wall, okay? Especially if I have a thin one face mesh like this. For objects that have for objects that that are not planes, so they have thickness. So this is not useful at all. You can simply assign a normal material because it will be applied to all the faces. But for objects that have only one face, Unreal by default is optimizing the other side, and it will not show it unless you check two-sided. Let's delete this and go back to our material. Two-sided, use material attributes. We will see this in when we will create our material for the landscape, and it will be very cool lesson because the landscape materials are different from the regular materials, and they require something called material attributes, because we will set up multiple layers in the material that will allow us to paint directly on the landscape and create different material layers. But you will not understand the landscape material without understanding the basic material. It's a copy of this, but more complicated. Okay. Enable executable wire. So this is not useful for your scenario. So it's more of, I think it's more of the debugging. Yes. More of debugging for developers. Wire. Cast ray trace shadows. So if you want, for some reason, if your object is not casting shadows in the level, you will may have this unchecked, cast ray trace shadows. Okay. So you need to check this to tell the material to cast shadows for your objects. Is that clear?
Okay.
So for the moment, that's all what you need to know for the material. So all of these are advanced attributes. We will may take a look at them, but you don't need. If you want to go in depth and look for them and look what they did, you can go. But this is what you need to create a material. So all of these are additional parameters, and these are more of a technical parameters more than artistic, which is the purpose of which is not the purpose of our training, but you can explore them. Okay. But all what you need is this menu and to set up your material correctly. By the way, if you pick subsurface profile here, you need to input your subsurface profile in here. That's just what is subsurface profile in here. So you have some advanced attributes. We don't need these. These are by default well optimized, and everything by default is checked correctly for you. So you don't need to mess up with anything here, especially if you don't know what you do. Okay. You can break your material or break the look of your materials by messing up with these settings. So they are by default very optimized. Is that clear? So now we finished this part. We saw this the material attributes. We saw this also, the material layers or the inputs, let's say. Now we will explore the other parts of the UI, and in the second part of our session we will start creating our master material, and I will start explain the different nodes if you right click here or you do tab click. Okay, because we can add hundreds of nodes in here to create specific effects, but we will not explore all of them. No one in the world is knowing all of them, but we will explore the most ones that you need in your daily work. Okay, so that's the purpose of our lesson. So here you have a 3D view, and you can see that we have a sphere, and here you can visualize your material, how it will look before applying it to the objects. Okay, so this small 3D view, you can navigate in it by left mouse clicking and rotating the mouse, or by right mouse clicking and zoom in, zoom out, or like in Unreal Viewport with Alt and left mouse click, right mouse click, etc. Okay, it's the same navigation shortcuts. So I will show you a cool way to edit this, because by default I don't like the look of this one. So I don't like the HDRI to be visible in the background. It's distracting me, especially if I'm working with bright materials and I have bright background. Okay, so I need, for example, to change this to a completely solid color, gray or anything. So the first thing to do here is to go here, for example, you can change the field of view, the view of the camera. I can make it 50. So my material will be more. So the camera angle will be more narrower, and the object will be less distorted, because the more we increase the angle here, the more our object will be distorted. So this is the camera. You can look at it from the top, bottom, etc. So you have a full viewport here. Here we have lit, unlit, wireframe. You can see your wireframe, etc. Like the viewport. Here also you have screen percentage and the real-time viewport. And here you have the options. So the first thing I need to do is to remove the background. So I need to have a solid color and to see my material. Okay. So you have preview scene profiles, gray wireframe or gray ambient. You want gray ambient, but I highly recommend to stay with Epic headquarters, because this will have the correct preview for you. Here you can choose your primitive, so I can change this to a cylinder. The same shortcuts are here. You can change it to a plane. You can see that it's one-sided, but if I check the two-sided button, it will be shown from two sides. You see? So that's a very quick way to see if your material is two-sided or not by checking this. Also, we have cube, and we have a very nice option that you can put your own mesh here. So if you want to see your own mesh, you can bring it here. And how to do that? Simply, you can go to the content browser. You can look for your mesh. Let's say I want to see port, or let's get a material from the starter object from starter content props, and let's bring this chair in here. So the only thing that you need to do is to select it in here in the material browser and go back to your material and click on this, and it will automatically bring it in the viewport here. Is that clear? So you can now see your object in the viewport in here. So this is very, very useful if I want to texture my or to apply a material to my object without looking to the full level. So I will only concentrate on polishing and creating my object. So you have many options here. You can remove the floor, see the object more clearly, especially if you want to look it at the bottom. So the floor will prevent you from looking at your object correctly. It will add dark shadows, etc. You can remove also post-processing. So you will look at a flat shading version of your object. In addition, you have the preview settings. When here you can choose environment color. So I can make my background darker. I can make it red, for example. Okay. So I can tweak it to fit my needs. By the way, you can show the environment like this, and you can change the HDRI in here, and I will show you in upcoming lesson, especially in the lighting, how to import your HDRI images. But for the universal workflow and for getting good results, you need to stay with the default HDRI, which is this one, and uncheck show environment and check floor. So that's the default way of doing this. In here, you have use skylighting. So you want to use skylight, which is very recommended. You can increase the light intensity. It's like a small viewport. You can do anything in here. If you leave everything by default, you will get the same result that you have in your default viewport. Usually I will just make the background a little bit darker like this to see more of the details, and I work with the sphere like that, or with my object if I have specific object. So there is a lot of options here. You can change them, but most of the time you don't need. Also, you can choose the post process enabled or disabled. So that's a personal preference. Enable tone mapping. So tone mapping is when Unreal is trying to calibrate the colors for you. So it's useful, and I always recommend leaving it on because it will show you a calibrated version of your colors. So you don't need to do this manually in your level. Show mesh edges. You can see the wireframe, your mesh. For some reasons, maybe you need to do that. So that's all for this view part and for the different parts of the UI. So we will take 20 minutes of pause, and then we will be back to start creating our material and explore these nodes. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back. So we saw all the UI parts, and now let's start creating our material. So as I said, we will create a 4 level of complexity. We will try to finish this today, but if not, we will finish it in the next session. But the essential part that we will see everything that you need to create an advanced master material in here, so it will serve you for all purposes. So the first thing that you need to do, sorry. See now my screen?
Wait.
Yes.
Okay, so if you right click in here, you will see a bunch of nodes. So these nodes could be connected in here to create some effects. So basically what we need to do in the first level of our material, so I will take screenshot. Here. And we will have our basic materials or textures in here. Okay. That will have some inputs that will be connected in here. For example, let's say like that. So this is level 1. Okay. In level 2, we will insert things between this and this one. Some nodes in here to control things in level 2. So in level 3, we will add a switch in here. So like a light switch in your home, but this will switch between this and so this will be in the true or in the false and between a static value. Okay? And this will go here, and this switch will allow us choosing between our texture with all of its nodes or a single value. So for example, for the base color, we'll need a color. Okay, so we will choose between a texture or a simple color. This switch will allow us to do that. For example, for our roughness, we will do the same. We'll add some nodes, and we'll choose between a roughness texture or a roughness value. Okay, so that's level 3. Yes, so adding switch parameters. And in the last level, which is level 4. So we finished this part, this entire part. Now we will control the tiling and rotation of our material. So we will add a specific material function in here, and we connect it to the UVs of all of our textures to connect the repetition, which is the tiling, and the rotation. Okay? And that will allow us to have 4 layers of complexity and to have a material that has switches, so it will serve us all the purposes. If we need a texture, we'll turn on the texture. If we need a value, we'll turn on a value. So this will allow us creating things from marble to plastic to glass to anything that has either attributes or textures. Okay, so that's the what we will see today in the material creation process. So we will start to apply this now. The first thing is to bring our texture maps here. And as you remember, we placed our texture maps in this folder. So we need to drag them and take them in here and place them in here. So we have our normal, have our diffuse, which is color, and we have our ARM. So occlusion, roughness, metallic. Okay. So R will be ambient occlusion. G will be roughness, as we said in substance, if you remember, and B metallic. So you can assign a separate texture for each slot, but I recommend doing the packed workflow. One single map instead of 3 maps. We will minimize the calculation and we will have the most optimized material. But this, when we start creating nodes in between, it will start looking a little bit complicated, okay? But we will try to make it as clear as possible, okay? So I will bring them a little bit back, so because I will add things in between in here, and I will connect the color into the base color and normal into the normal. Now we have the base material, okay? And you can see here we have a material that has all the attributes that we need for a level 1 material. Is that clear?
Oui.
So if you can follow up with me, that will be better. Another thing, I will go back in here and now I will assign my material to this wall. But I will not assign the master material. I will create a material instance. Right click on the master material and create a material instance. And I will call this M wall. Okay? And I will assign it to my wall. And now you can see the texture in the viewport. And if I double click on the material instance, there is nothing here. But you can see that the parent is the M master. Okay? When we will start adding nodes to the M master, the parameters and the sliders will start appearing in this child or this instance. And that's what we will do right now. So I will double click in here to go back to my view in here. And now I will start adding some nodes. So let's say I want to add some nodes to control the brightness of this map, the contrast, and the saturation. Okay? So because currently if I plug it, it will look as it is. But what if I want to make the color darker, to make it more contrasted, or to make it more saturated? So this where level 2 coming very useful. So the first thing I will add is I will add something called a scalar parameter. Scalar parameter, and you can see that it's here, or you can hold S and left mouse click. It will create a scalar parameter. So look at this as a parameter that we can enter a value inside it. And the first value we will enter is albedo, which is or diffuse. Let's name it diffuse brightness. So this will allow us to control the brightness of our material. And I will hit M and hit left mouse click. So when holding M, I will hit left mouse click and I will multiply this by what? By the texture map. And I will connect this multiply in the base color. So now I need to put a value of 1 as a default value to get the default result in here. So when I hit apply now, it will take some time to apply it, but when I go now to my M wall, I can see that I have a new parameter appeared here, which is diffuse brightness, and now I can increase the brightness of my texture or decrease it. You see? Is that clear?
Okay.
You start to understand the work.
السكيل شو اسمه
We will go to the scale in level 4.
no
Okay. Scalar parameter.
Scalar.
Yes. Or you hold S in your keyboard. You hold S and left mouse click, and it will create a scalar parameter. You need to name these. So it's very important to name your values, and I will show you how we can group these together. Because if I go now to my material instance, you can see it's now under the global scalar parameter value, but I don't want this. I want to have my settings organized. So for albedo, I want to have albedo settings, and underneath it there is or diffuse settings, and underneath it there is diffuse parameters. Okay.
Okay.
So to do that, I will go back to my master material, which is this one, and when clicking on diffuse brightness, you can see here that it's allowing me to create a group. So by default there is no groups, so you need to replace the none by diffuse settings or parameters or controls. Okay. And sort priority, the priority of this node in this list, I will set 1. You understand what this means? So I'm telling it to add diffuse controls and to have the diffuse brightness on top. Okay?
Yes.
So diffuse brightness on top. But before moving to the other nodes, I forgot about something that is very important. What if I want to change this texture in here, in the material instance? I don't have the control. I need to go back to my master material and swap the textures in here, which is not useful. So I need to tell Unreal Engine to convert this to a parameter. And this will be diffuse map. And I will put these maps into a different group that is called texture maps. They will appear on top, and this one will be the first. I will do this also. ORM, Occlusion Roughness Metallic Map. And I will put it in the same texture maps group. Please mute your mics.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. In the texture maps, and I will give it a value of 2 or 3. So let's have it 3 because normal usually should be the second map. And this will be converted to parameters. and also normal map. And now if I put it into texture maps and give it a value of 3 and hit apply, watch what will happen when we go in here. Now we have texture maps, and now we can change our textures directly in the instance. We can bring anything else and we can change our textures, and they are grouped under the texture maps menu. Okay, is that clear?
بلغة أخرى معناتها كي نحن حاطينها بارامتر معناتها وقتها ولينا نجمو نتحكموا فيها أكثر.
Exactly. So
Okay.
and each time we create a material instance from our material, it will have all these parameters, and we can change the maps for each material instance individually. So we can have a lot of maps, a lot of parameters independent from this master material.
Okay.
So I will
clear.
delete this and we will go back to our master material. So now we will add more nodes in here to have more control. So now I added the diffuse brightness. So now I will add a contrast. And these are mathematical nodes. They need to be known, not just understand, but you can just know them. You don't need to understand the physics or the math behind them, okay? So you need to understand and to the graph itself. So to make a contrast node, I will also use a scalar, another scalar parameter. And now I will make it diffuse contrast. But this time, also I will leave it at 1. 1 is the default value for most of the nodes. And now I will not use multiply because this will not multiply the contrast. The contrast should be used with a node called power. I'm right clicking and searching for power and picking with enter the power node. So in the exponent, I'm assigning the albedo, the diffuse contrast, and in the base, I'm assigning this. And as always, I will connect this in here. Hit apply, before hitting apply, I will group this into the diffuse controls, and I will give it a priority of 2, so it will appear under the diffuse brightness. Apply. And now I will go back here, and you can see we have diffuse brightness and diffuse contrast. So now I will adjust the contrast, and you can see now we are contrasting our texture to get more details. Okay? So it's unlike brightness, which is bumping the brightness of our texture and or downscale it. We are using diffuse contrast to contrast our colors. Is that clear?
Yes. الكونتراست جاي تحت ذيك على خاطر هو في النود الثانية.
Yes. You can choose the order of them. And also for these. So I set this to 1, 2, and 3.
Yes,
so they will appear like that. Usually these maps should appear on top. I think we can change this. Sadly, we can't, because the first thing that you create will appear on the top. Okay, so if you want your texture maps to be on the top, you need to create them first. Okay, so the next map that we will do is to do a desaturation, because we need the desaturation also, for example, to make a black and white shader, or to remove saturation, or to increase saturation. So there is a specific desaturation node. So this desaturation will work as a saturation. What we want at the end is the saturation, okay? Is that clear? But we don't have saturation in Unreal. We have desaturation, the invert. So we will use the desaturation. And to get saturation, what we'll need to do logically, if we have the desaturation, what we need to do for this to make it a saturation, not desaturation.
Multiply negative.
Yes, it's not multiply, but we need to make it negative, minus. And the node for the negative is -1, or 1 minus 1 minus. So now we are telling Unreal to flip any value that I will input it here, and this way we'll get a saturation. Okay, and now I will add my
Okay.
diffuse saturation, and I will leave it to 1. So really, this is not 1, this is -1 when it will enter here. Okay, and it will become a saturation, not desaturation, this way. I will hit apply, and before that I need to group it inside the diffuse control, and I will give it a value of 3, so it will appear on the bottom. Now if I go to my diffuse saturation and I put 0, I should see black and white map, which is exactly what I'm seeing now. You see, it's a black and white. And if I go to saturation, it will saturate the colors like in Photoshop. Okay, is that clear? So you don't need, as I said, you don't need to understand these. You need to تحفظوهم معناها مش تفهموهم. You don't need to understand the phenomenon. You just need to understand how to apply these. So it's like a formula. Okay.
معناتها تدخل فورمولا معناتها تمشي على كل شيء.
Exactly. If you want to adjust the brightness, you need to multiply the texture with the brightness. If you want to adjust,
okay.
exactly.
معناتها كل واحدة تمشي مع okay.
Yes. So, and let's say now the last thing I want to add to my diffuse map. You can see that we started to make a very complicated system, but so with more controls, with a lot of controls. And now the last thing is, what if I want to add a tint to my texture? I don't want it to be like this. I want to add a tint. I can add this, so I can multiply everything that is outputted in here. So I will add a multiply node, M, holding M, and I will put this into the A and connect this here, and into the B I will input a color. And a color in Unreal can be done, so you can left click and click here, or right click in here and use a constant 3 vector. And why a constant 3 vector? Because a constant 3 vector has 3 values, R and G and B, okay, which are also the X, Y, Z. And if you leave it as a black now, our texture will become extremely dark. So as any other value, you need to have it 1 or white by default. Okay? And now it's doing nothing because it's white. It's doing nothing, like it doesn't exist. But if I change the color now to red, you can see that my texture is now tinted to red. Okay? So I will turn it back into white, and I will convert this to parameter, and I will name this to diffuse tint. And as usual, I will put it in diffuse controls, and I will give it a priority of 4. And now all my diffuse controls are finished. So I will go to my M wall. Now I see that there is a diffuse tint value added, and now I can tint my texture to the color that I want. Okay? Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
It's keeping the original texture, but it's adding a tint. You will need this a lot for many reasons. So to blend your objects together, or to make your object a little bit darker. So if you want to make it a little bit darker, you can use the tint also to make it a little bit darker. So you have a lot of controls. So our work for the diffuse is finished here. And this is level 2 of the material, but we will continue working on the others. But here, let's say I want to make it more organized. Okay, because there is a lot of nodes here, and imagine that I will have, for example, hundreds of nodes, a lot of things, a lot of maps here. And this project, for example, I'm working on with a team, and I'm giving this project to one of my colleagues in the team, and he opens the material graph and he will look at many nodes, and nothing is documented, nothing is noted. Okay, so this will be a lot of mess. Luckily in Unreal here we have in the material editor a way to group these visually. So I will select all of these nodes and I hit C. And now I can add a comment and tell him, or tell the person, so I can expand it a little bit to cover this, and tell the person, so double click in here, that these are the diffuse controls. Okay? Is that clear? I can even color code them. I can give the diffuse controls a color like this. And I can put them in here, for example. Okay? So these are the diffuse controls. I will now continue working on the other maps. So I will start by working with the roughness, which is the G in here. So G is roughness. Usually if you have a separate roughness map without the packaged version, you can take the RGB and connect it to the node that I will show you now. But if you are working with this workflow, which is more optimized, what you need to do is to draw from the G, not doing this. We need only the roughness, and we will add controls for the roughness. So the first control for the roughness, we need to add a roughness brightness, like we did in here. So you can copy values, but we will do it from scratch. So you will be more familiar with these nodes, roughness, brightness. And by default, I will set it to 1. And this could not be plugged directly, so we need to have a multiply node. And we will multiply this in here. So if you start having a lot of nodes like this, you can double click to create a separator. So this way we can make our roughness like this on top. Is that clear? So you double click on any, you double click on any point to add like a rerouting. Okay? So just to have a point and to make it more clear.
Okay.
So we have a multiply in here, and the next one is the brightness. So I will the contrast. We will create a group for these. So like we have the diffuse control, now we have roughness controls. And this will be 1. And we will have another scalar parameter, which is a roughness contrast. It will be also 1. And as I said, what node we will use with the contrast, if you remember?
Power.
Yes, exactly. So when we do contrast, we need to use the power node. and we need to plug it into the exponent. And now our controls for the roughness are finished. What we need to do now is to do C to group them. And here we have roughness controls. Okay. And this now should be connected to the roughness instead of this. Okay. And now I will color code it. I will give it a red, for example, color code. And we should always save our work because it could crash. Light could, so electricity could cut off. So anything could happen. And sadly, you can lose your work. So we will leave all of the other ones as they are. So I will disconnect them now by hitting Alt. And I will keep only the roughness. Later, I will connect them back, okay? Because these will be replaced with values. So like metallic, we can get a metallic texture. Yes, we can get it. But for the ambient occlusion, for example, in here, we can replace it with a value, okay? So we can choose either texture or value, so it doesn't have nodes to control it. You can, but we will not do that right now. So we will leave it like that. Is that clear?
No,
Yes.
So for metallic, we will do, we can do the same thing for metallic. So let's duplicate this, Control D to duplicate, and we will have this named as metallic controls, and this will be metallic brightness, and we will create metallic controls. Okay, and this one will be also in metallic controls, and it will have the value of 2 and metallic contrast. And I will change the color to a blue, for example. And I will connect this B in here or in here directly. Okay, and the output should be connected to metallic. So this way we have our values connected properly for the metallic and the roughness. And now we will do the normal. So now we have our material correctly set up. If I enter here, I will see diffuse controls like this. So I will refresh just the material. Diffuse. Double check. Let's hit apply. We didn't hit apply. This is why the material instance didn't change it. So you need to hit apply, and now the parameters appeared. So we have the metallic controls and we have the roughness controls. But the roughness controls only have the roughness brightness because the roughness contrast is wrongly placed in the metallic controls group. So we need to go back in here and check roughness controls, and this is where our issue. So this should be in the roughness, not in the metallic. Is that clear? So these in the metallic and these in the roughness group. Now when we hit apply and we go back, now we see 2 for metallic and 2 for the roughness. Is that clear?
Yes. و2 is enough معناتها ما فماش حاجات أخرى تتزاد.
We will add the switch parameter in level 4 that will switch between this texture, because we have a texture already, so it has all the information, and we need to control only its brightness or contrast, or replace the entire chain with a simple value.
Okay.
So for example, if I have a glass material, I don't need to input a roughness texture for the glass. I just need a value. Okay, so we will add these switch parameters in the final, in level 3, sorry. In level 4, we will add the controls for the tiling and UVs. Okay, so you can group this one, for example, and name it ORM, occlusion reference metallic. So this way, you know that this is, let's give it a different material. So this is the texture, the main texture that will feed metallic roughness and occlusion. Apply and save everything. And the last one, which is this one, should be go to the ambient occlusion, but we will connect it later, not now, because we don't need ambient occlusion right now. So what is missing here is the controls for our normal map. Okay, so now we will control the normal, because now if you can see
والambient occlusion ما عندهاش controls متاعها.
usually it doesn't have, so it's
Oh.
just an artificial shadow.
Yes.
So it doesn't have, if you want to contrast it more, you can add these like we did here, and you can add contrast in other things. But usually ambient occlusion maps are coming well calibrated and doesn't need to be adjusted. Okay.
Okay.
I will remove this one and connect it directly. There is no need for the node here. Here it's okay, so let's leave it. If you take a look at the wall now, it has some normal information, but what if I want to exaggerate the normal to make it more intense? I don't have any parameters that allow me to modify the normal intensity. So the first thing that I will create a scalar parameter, and I will name it normal intensity. And as most of values in Unreal, the default value is 1. If you put 0, it will remove entirely your normal, okay? It will not apply it. So you need to start with 1. 1 is the basic or the default normal value. Then we need to apply a flatten normal node. Flatten normal. And like we did in here for the desaturation, we don't want our normal to be flat, okay? We want it to be not flat. So what we will introduce here is the 1 minus that we did in the other one. So anything that I input here should be flipped in here. And we will connect our normal right in here. And the output of flatten normal in there. And now my normal controls are ready. I need just to add these. So let's give the metallic a different color. Okay. Normal usually are blue. So just a preference, a personal preference. You don't need, there is no rules here. Normal controls. And there is only one value. It doesn't matter if it's 32 or 1. So just I will put it and apply. And now if I will go and save everything. Save all. If I open now my wall and I now see my normal controls. If I play with the normal intensity, look at the wall. You see? Now I'm increasing the normal intensity of my wall or removing it completely. So if I put 0, there is no normal information. So it's only using the other maps. But if 1 is default, 5 is exaggerated, 2 or 3 maybe, to make it more intense. Okay? Is that clear? Is there any questions here before we go to the switch?
جوست نتاع التينت كانت نجم تعاودها كيفاش؟
Yes, so for the tint, I right click and added a constant 3 vector. So the constant 3 vector is the color in Unreal. So you can tell it, I want to add a color. So there is constant 2, constant 3, and constant 4. Constant 2, it has only 2 values, R and G. Constant 3, it has the 3 values RGB, which are the values of normal color, what we want. RGB A, it has the alpha channel. We don't need the alpha in here, okay? So we need only 3 color inputs. And here we can pick our default tint, which is white. By picking white, we are telling Unreal to not change anything in here until we manually change the tint in our material instance. Okay, so by default the material will look as it is and the changes will only happen in the instances. And for example, now if I tint this wall to the red, I can create another material instance in here and assign it to this wall, and you can see that it doesn't have this red, it's reset to the original, and I can have another tint like a blue in here, all from one single material. And I can also change the texture maps. I'm not limited to these, so I can go to the mega scans, for example, surfaces, and I can swap the textures with the ones I downloaded from the mega scans, and now my wall has a different texture than the other one, and it has all the controls that we have in here. So it has the diffuse brightness, you can increase the brightness, it has the contrast, and it's independent from here. All of them are coming from our master material that we created in here. So this is the master material and these are the childs. Is that clear?
اوكي. اما الكونستانت 3 فيكتور ما نجمش نبدلها للاسم وما نجمش نحطها في جروب دو كنترول.
So to make it editable, you need to right click on it and convert it to parameter. I already converted it to parameter.
داكور ميرسي.
When you convert it to parameter, you have the ability to change the name and to put it into a group.
داكور ميرسي.
So I will remove this one and I will remove the tint. So I will reset it back, apply it in here and Control S. So is that clear?
Yes, yes.
So now what we will do is we will create level 4 for our level 3 for our materials. So level 1 is the input maps with the swappable possibility. Level 2 is the additional controls we did here. Now level 3 is switches. So we will add something called static switch parameter to each of these to have the ability to change between this entirely or a simple color, this entirely or a simple value, this with this, including this one, okay? Because we can input textures here, but we can input values also. And I will show you why this is useful. So to do that, I will right click and add a static switch parameter, not static switch. Don't use this one. It's static switch parameter. And this static switch parameter, we will have to name it correctly. So this is diffuse color.
C'est comme si level 3 هو وين تصير الاوبريشن معناتها.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will explain it in both English and Arabic for your colleagues. So in English, this will act as a switch to choose between this or something or a static color, only one single color in the color. So we choose between a texture with all of its parameters or a simple color. In Arabic, so or in Tunisian, عنا هذه الكلها، وعنا static switch هذا المفتاح شي يقول لك يا تستعمل هذا الكل ولا تعوض هذا الكل بكولور سامبل ولا بفالور سامبل كما لهنا. واضح؟ خاطر some materials they don't need some materials they don't need textures, they need only values like a glass, like a mirror, like chrome. If you want to create a chrome you don't need textures, you need just values. Okay, and we said that this material should be an all-purpose material, so it should create any type of material for us. Okay, so here you have two states, you have true and false. Okay, and the default value is false. So what is the default value for us? If we want to make this entire chain the default value, we need to put it where? In true or in false?
False.
Exactly. So, and we need to leave this unchecked. If you want to check it and by default it's activated, you need to rename this to diffuse map, not color, and make it checked. And I will group this with diffuse controls and I will give it the value of 0. So 0, it will appear on the top. Okay? So from the beginning we will choose if we want to work with this workflow or another workflow. And I will connect this in here. And now it's giving me an error because in the true there is nothing selected. So in the true I will choose a simple constant 3 vector. And I will name it, convert it to parameter, and name it diffuse color. And I will set it to white. I will plug it into the true, and nothing is changed because the default should be this one. So now if you go to your material instance, you will see there is an option appeared here, but it's different from these. These are sliders, but this is a checkbox. And if I check this, all of this will disappear. You will see that these will be disappeared and replaced by what? By one parameter, which is the diffuse color. I will check it, and now you will see the diffuse color is here. We made a mistake. Who can tell me what is the mistake? What is the thing that is not well organized here? It's that our diffuse color should be under diffuse controls, not a global vector value. So when I check this, this option should appear underneath it, not in a separate group. So this is why we need to go back in here and to add this to diffuse controls. And let's give it a value of 5. It doesn't matter because it will appear only, okay? So it will not appear with other things because it will replace this. And now we are seeing our diffuse color in here. So now if you can look closer also into these maps, the diffuse map completely disappeared. You see? There is no diffuse map when we check it the color. So we are telling Unreal that we want to replace the diffuse map with a simple color. There is no color texture information. There is only one color in here. Is that clear?
لسه قاعدة نطبق فيها.
So let's recap. We have our diffuse texture, and we added this switch at the end of the chain to switch between all of this chain or changing or choosing a simple color. I don't want a texture. I want a color, a simple color. Okay? So if I want a simple color, I need to go here and check diffuse color. If it's unchecked, it will bring back the maps and it will use the default texture map with its controls. If I check this, everything related to diffuse that we did will disappear, and only the option of changing the color will be available. Okay? Is that clear?
Oui.
So you need to practice this but the logic is very easy and very clear. So same thing here in metallic controls. So now you know how to do it. But this will not be replaced with a color. It will be replaced with what? A value. So here I will add a scalar parameter or S and just type roughness metallic value. And by default, I will set it to 0. So this is where you need to put a default value of 0. Be careful. Some of them should be 1. Some of them should be default 0. So default 0 is no metallic. Okay? And then I will choose the value. Now I will choose the static switch parameter. And I will name it metallic is metallic value. And I will add I add this interrogation mark. Okay. So I will put this to true as usual, and this to false. Our regular work to false, and this to true. And this should be grouped under the metallic controls. As usual, it should be 0. It should appear on the top. And now if I go to my material, I will see that metallic value is on. So if I check this, what will happen for these two?
Disappear.
And what will appear?
اللي عوضنا شو اسمه metallic
Value.
values.
So now if I add one metallic value, this will be metallic. Okay? So it should be combined with the roughness to see any effect like metallic. But now we have a metallic material. So that's for the metallic value. And as you can see, we made the same mistake. Metallic value is in separate menu. So we need to go back to our metallic value and put it in the metallic controls, and doesn't matter the place because it will appear individually. So now you have it. You need just to repeat the same for the roughness. So this should be in roughness controls. So let's set it. But now for roughness, we need to have a value of 1. You see? Metallic should be 0. Sometimes if you duplicate nodes like this, you will see when I change it, it will change the other node. I don't know, it's a bug. So in this case, I will create a separate scalar parameter and I will not use the duplicate. So now I will have 1 and 0 in here. Okay, and now it's working fine. And the roughness value, I will put it into the roughness controls, and I will add a static switch parameter as usual. And here, roughness value. And I will show you how we can create a chrome material out of this one at the end. So this should be output to true, and all of this should be connected to false. Okay. And this should be in the roughness. So by the way, you can group these together, these static switch parameters, or you can include them in the grouping. Okay. So like that, you can include them, and you can include this and make this in here. So to have it more visually organized. And now for the normal. So for the normal, you don't have to add a parameter or a static switch parameter for the normal. So you need only to use the value. If you don't want normal, you can set the value to 0. Okay? Is that clear?
If I don't want شنو؟
If you don't want normal, you need just to put the value to 0 in the parameters, and it will disable the normal completely. Okay?
Okay.
Because there is no things that you can replace with normal. You can't replace it with color, okay, or value. So it should have a map, a value of 1 or 0. Okay. So that's it. So now we finished level 4 of our material, and you can still see that we started
level
3. Yes, level 3. Sorry. So now what is missing is the controls for the tiling. So if I want these to be more repetitive or less, if I want to rotate my texture maps or not, so this could be added in here. So you can add it in this UI. Okay, you can add the functions here and connect them, but I have a more professional and interesting way of doing this, which is, and I want to show you an example. So it's the best practice or the best example of using something called material functions. Okay, so we have materials and we have material functions. Instead of adding the controls in this and making our graph looks super dense and heavy, we can create, right click in here and go to materials. Go to material and advanced material function. Okay, is that clear? And this material function, I will name it MF tiling and rotation. Tiling rotation.
Material function.
Yes, it's a material function that we can call it in our material UI in here and connect it in there. So if we double click on our material function, you can see it's now doesn't have any inputs. Okay, so look at this as a portal, something we will connect here, and the output of it we will call it in another node, which is our master material. Okay, so to make our master material UI a little less denser UI or less denser graph, the only thing that you need to check in here is expose to library. So when we check expose to library, we can call it in other material, in other materials. Okay, so now we will go to our master material, and with this name copied, we will copy the name and right click in here and we call it, and now it's available. You see, MF tiling rotation, and it's a material function that we will connect it to our UVs in here. It's giving you an error because it's not set up yet. We double click on it to open this, and now we will start adding nodes. So we will add a texture coordinate node, and this texture coordinate should be multiplied. So it should be in A, multiplied by what? By a scalar parameter, and this should be named tiling. And the default value should be 1. So we should have 1 as default value for tiling, and I will connect this in here just to show you. Now the error disappeared, and the good thing about this, that when we go to our material wall, now we can see, sorry for the roughness, we missed this also. Roughness value should be in roughness controls. Okay, apply. and this tiling should be included into our tiling for our material, or we can let's say can do so. Let's do it, because this will make it a little bit complicated, because we need to call this in another UI and it will be very complicated, so we will do it in here directly. Okay, so this will be easier, and later when you will get familiar with the materials, we will go to explore material functions. Okay, so let's do it in here, and here we will add a texture coordinate, and our texture coordinate should be multiplied, as we said, by a scalar parameter, and the scalar parameter would be named texture tiling, and we will set this into let's name it global texture controls. So this will act as a global texture control. So the first parameter is the tiling, and next we will have a custom rotator, so we need to rotate our textures. So we plug this into the UVs, and rotation angle is the scalar parameter. But you can see here, so I will UV rotation. You can see here that it's saying the value of the angle should be between 0 and 1. Okay? You see that he's telling us that the maximum value is 1 and the minimum is 0. So if we want to rotate our texture by 90 degrees, what value should I input here? If 0 to 360 is equal to 0 to 1.
0.25.
0.25.
Yes.
Exactly. So this will rotate it by 90 degrees. The good thing that you can limit the maximum rotation in any, or the maximum value in any scalar parameter. So here exactly this is what we will do. We will limit it to 1. So between 0 and 1. And the default value will be 0. So our texture will be not rotated by default, but we will rotate it manually, and I will add this to the global texture controls, and I will input a value of 2, so it will appear under the tiling. And now we finished level 4, so I will just need to input these into the UVs of our material, and all of this should be tiling rotation. Okay. By the way, you can add the offset also. We will add it later, but just I will show you now how you can do it. So now the texture disappeared. Why? Because we have texture tiling value of 0, and I said you should put it at 1 to get the default result. So now if I go to the M wall and I will go to the global texture controls, so this should be on the top. Here, what we need to do, what we can do is control the tiling. You can see I'm making my texture smaller or bigger. Is that clear? So this is the tiling, and now this is the rotation. I can rotate my texture, and you can see the values. The maximum value I have here is 1, because I set the max 1 in the material master material. Okay, so this is how you can rotate your textures. Maybe you need to rotate them to face certain direction, but if I need to make an offset in my texture, so I need to, maybe I need to move my texture to the right or the left, or I need to move it to top and bottom. So what I need to do here is, before the custom rotator, I need to add I will have add the add. Usually when you and okay. So you need to add another multiply in here. Okay. Now in this multiply, I will add something called append vector. So append vector will allow me to introduce two additional values that could be working together to control something. So I will add scalar parameter, and this I will make it offset y, which is vertical, or offset v, offset x, so u horizontal, offset u, and another scalar parameter, offset v, which is the vertical. And this into A and this into B, and both of these, so you can select two and group them together into the global texture controls, and this will appear as 3 and this will appear as 4. Apply. Go back to our texture. So by default also this should be 1. Okay. So you can see an indication here. So if you see your material looking like this, that you need to put 1 in here to make it the default state. And now if I go to my wall material, I see now offset U and offset V. So now I can move my texture on the horizontal, scale it on the horizontal, or on the vertical. Okay. So let's like it's stretching the texture. Is that okay?
الأوفسيت يخدم كوم سكيل.
Yes, it's stretching here, so it's working with stretching. But if you want a true offset, you can use the add instead of append. So add. It's so add, and these now should be set to 0.
What's the difference between add or multiply here?
So add will add this to this one. Okay, it will add these to this multiply. Append will edit the value without adding it to this one. So it's taking this and editing it. Okay, so it's mathematical values. So 1 by 1, and let's try to apply this. Is our level. No, this is acting as a scale. Our work here is append. But let me check something. Because the Megascans has the node and have the material MF tiling. So it has the append like we did. I don't know why it's not working properly. Maybe we need to combine it with add, okay? So I will combine it with add. And this should work now. So in the M master, So all of this should be combined with add, not multiply. So it should be added, the append should be added to this one to not have the stretch effect. So this should work logically. Let's try now. M-wall. And yes, now it's working, you see. So now we are offsetting the texture without scaling it at all on the X and on the Y. Is that clear? So you need to use add instead of multiply to avoid the stretching effect. Append and add. Okay? Is that clear for this part?
Yes.
So I encourage you to watch the recording to reapply these. And now I will show you. So in the next lesson, we will add opacity and other things to this one. But for now, I will show you, for example, how to create a different type of materials out of this one. So let's say I want to create a chrome ball. Okay? Something different, or a mirror. Let's create another. So let's use this plane as a mirror, and we will keep the texture in here. So I will create a material instance out of this and name this M Chrome. And now who can guide me through the creation of a chrome material in here? So if I want to create a chrome, what I need to do? The first thing.
Désactive diffuse
And what else?
والroughness. لا الديفيوز والنورمال ديزاكتيفي.
Do we need these maps, these three maps?
ليه خاطر باش نستعملوا لي values نتاع
Yes, exactly. So we need to disable all things related to our textures and use only values. So I will go here and go here and go here. And now I have a material without anything assigned to it, and I will set my normal to 0. So now I'm starting with a fresh material. Okay? So this material, I will assign it, the M chrome, I will assign it to my sphere. So now let's start with the first attribute. So do we need color? If we want our chrome to be brighter, we can keep this. If we don't, we can use the black. Okay? Now, to make this looking as a chrome, we need to put our metallic and roughness. So these are placed in the wrong section, so we need to go ahead and correct them. But for now, I will leave them in here. So for metallic, we should increase this to 1. This is the first step. You will see that your material will look dark. This is because our roughness value is 1. But watch when we have this set to 0 and the diffuse color is set to white. Okay, so now we have a full chrome material. Okay, is that clear? So you can control the intensity in here. So you can also control. So let's say the roughness. So you want it to be less rough. So realistic chrome should not be like a mirror. Should have some kind of blurriness. Okay. So this is the chrome. Now, if I want to create a mirror, what I need to do is to create. So to go to my master material, and I will add something into the specular. Specular value. sorry, specular value, and this is very important. By default, I needed to have a 0 value. I don't need to have specular. And I will place it in the global controls. So let's global texture controls, or let's add specular attributes. Okay. And by the way, let's fix these. So the roughness value should be in roughness controls. And the metallic value should be in metallic controls. So now if I create a material instance, M, and let's create chrome, M mirror, okay, and assign this to this wall. What I need to do now is I need to do what I did in the previous ones, normal to 0, and metallic value and roughness value, okay, should be this one, and this is roughness value to 0. Now I have a perfect mirror, you can see. And you can also adjust in the global texture. So you can adjust our specular. We didn't apply the specular. Okay. So now it should appear in the specular, yes. Now you can adjust your specular values. So it will reflect perfectly like a mirror. Okay. Is that clear?
Okay.
So we have now our chrome. For the chrome, you need, you can, by the way, for the roughness, can put it to 1, and the specular, so you can reduce the roughness a little bit, yes, to create this chrome effect, you see. So now we have a chrome effect. You can see that the reflections are not perfect in Unreal by default, but I will show you in upcoming lessons, especially when we go to post-production and effects, how to improve this and make it look realistic with these reflections. So you can see that there is, this chair is very dark in the background. This object is not looking correct in the reflection. So all of this is because Unreal by default is applying some optimization to optimize performance. So you will only see the objects when you are close to them or at some angles, but always there will be artifacts in here by default. Okay, I will show you in an upcoming lesson how to improve the reflections and make them look more realistic. But for now, this is the workflow for materials. So the final thing that we will create now before we leave is we will create a glass material. Okay, and this glass material should have a translucency parameter. So we can add this to our master. Let's save all. And let's create a material instance, M glass. And this glass material, I will apply it to this one. By default, I will apply. So metallic value, I will set it to 0, normal to 0, and specular value to 1, and also roughness value to 1, to 0, sorry. So roughness value to 0. and normal intensity, so we set it already to 0, metallic value, diffuse color. So we have everything now set up correctly, but we still don't have the main parameter that we are looking for, which is transparency. So to have this, we need to add transparency in here, and opacity mask will not work because, like in Substance Painter, opacity mask will be 1 or 0. Here we need a value between 1 and 0. So we need to make our material change it from masked to either of these three. So translucent, but we will lose control over other attributes, or additive, or modulate. But you can see with these we are losing control over our materials, and these are very expensive when it comes to opacity or translucency. So this is why I said I prefer to have a separate material for the transparent objects. But you can enable translucency and to regain control over what you did here, because it will be disabled. All of this will be disabled and only the base color will work. To regain access, we need to change the lighting mode from volumetric non-directional to surface translucency volume. And this will re-enable and force the material to use what we did before in addition to the opacity, okay? But keep in mind that this is very costly. So opacity, by default, we need it to be 1. We need our material to be fully opaque, and then we need to change values. And I will put it into the global texture controls, so it doesn't matter in here. And now when you look into your object in the level, the first thing that you will see that our objects are losing shadows, and this is one of the drawbacks of using translucency, okay? So you can't use shadows by default. So by default, if you enable the contact shadows, you will not have shadows. So this is why I recommend having a separate material for this for the glass or anything have transparency. But you can keep using this, but you will lose your shadows. So if I go now to M glass, I have a slider for the opacity added to the global texture controls. And now if you look closer, I can make it transparent. Okay. And with the combination of this metallic and the other values, you can get realistic looking glass. So we need to improve many other attributes, but you can see now we have the reflections of the glass in these areas. Okay. So to get the correct material, I recommend that you create a separate glass shader and revert this back to masked or opaque. So the good and the recommended way to do it is I will remove this firstly, and I will create M material, master M glass, M glass master. And quickly we can use a series of scalar parameters. So roughness to 0 and metallic to 1. Okay. And specular, we can put it to 1 or use any other value that you want. And now I can change the material type to translucent, and I can use these volumetric translucency volume, and I can add another scalar, which is opacity. Okay, and now I can connect it to opacity, and let's have it to 0.5, for example, by default. So this will act as our glass material, and I will create a material instance. And now we have the glass in our level with these 3 parameters. So we can adjust the metalness, the opacity, our material, and the roughness. Okay. Is that clear?
Oui.
But for 99% of cases, this master material, which is M master, will serve you for all these purposes. So there are some cases where you need to create a different glass material or separate glass material for glass objects, but I think in a level, it's an exception to have glass materials. So especially glass, purely glass materials. So like with no reflection, with no baked maps from Substance or any other tool. Okay. So that's it for today. In the next session, we will do a quick recap on this. And also, we will start creating a master material for our landscape. So your homework will be to create a master material and to create 3 material instances, variations of it. So one for a chrome, one for a simple wall, and another one, for example, for a wood or any other material. Okay?